Welcome to NFL Daily, where we're not walking on eggshells in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio because the Eagles won this week.
Oh,
We're not afraid of
for you.
angry Colleen Wolfe. Yes, I am so happy to be joined by Colleen Wolfe and Jourdan Rodrigue. Again, NFL Daily presented by DoorDash. Welcome.
You know what it is? It is a good day, a better day than it was last week this time. So I'm not acting like a terrorist in here. Great.
It would be fun if Colleen actually was like that, like the type of person you couldn't bring up like bad things around because she just acts out and lashes out.
You know what, though, Colleen?
work.
If we can't handle you at your Eagles loss, we don't deserve you at your Eagles win.
Oh.
Yes, so the Eagles, they got a big win on Sunday. I still feel like I'm riding the high from the Monday night games. You were
Oh, my
texting
God.
Jourdan.
I
You sounded
think I
like
sent you like 100 texts in 30 seconds. I was so excited. I was so freaking fired up. That was awesome.
Even just our show text chain was going off, and I was like comatose on my couch watching
Colleen
the
had
games,
the longest
and was
day.
like, "I'll text you guys in the morning."
but that was exciting. That did feel like, I mean, I keep replacing him, but that felt like the next big moment of the season. Like that was the best thing that's happened this season. Jaden Daniels just going off. And so, you know, that inspires us. We like that a lot. And we're going to keep it simple today. We're going to talk about what we like so far, stuff we like, and stuff we don't like this season. It's kind of like we've had a lot of, I think, big concept shows on the Connie Jourdan Wednesday. So this is kind of like,
Love a theme.
you know, when a big budget director, like Paul Thomas Anderson, he has There Will Be Blood. And then, you know, you got to change a little tone. You can't go higher than There Will Be Blood. I don't think we can go higher than we did last. So this is our Phantom Thread.
Okay.
You're making us chill a little bit is basically what you're
I'm just
saying.
saying Phantom, but sometimes those are the best. Phantom Thread.
Yeah.
Better than There Will Be Blood. I would.
I
argue.
think that Greg was just tired of losing to me at Judge Connie. So this is where we come in with this outstanding theme. I am really excited about this because we have some fun things.
Yeah, we do.
Some not so fun things.
Yes, and next week we'll go back to big concept because we are officially bringing back Quarterback Island. We've heard from a lot of the listeners who have been proposing. Okay, Jaden Daniels, he's on the island. Good thing, Greg, you didn't get Caleb Williams on the island because he would have been being taken off. So 4 weeks. Jourdan, I know you're a woman that likes things to make sense. And 4 weeks does make sense for a time we're going to evaluate all the quarterbacks. But today, we're going to talk about what we like. Why don't you get us going, Jourdan? Why not?
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I actually like that offense's quarterback play, passing in general, is down. And stick with me here on this because I know that a lot of people are not super thrilled with that. But I think that this is going to be where we actually kind of weed out some of the coaches who are actually great coaches, teachers, adjusters.
The frauds are going to be exposed.
And then we might weed out some people who maybe aren't kind of ready to meet this cycle of offense and of defense as being smarter than ever, where it's at right now. And then it opens up more opportunity for people who are ready to climb that ladder. I think that this is super interesting, just watching the way that some of these coaches, even when I also like that, I don't like when people get hurt, obviously, but I like that some of these coaches have also hit adversity. I see you guys have put Sean McVay and the Rams on this.
Well, I'm picturing Jourdan with a burn book of coaches that she's just waiting to be exposed.
It's like Ryan from The Office. I'm just scribbling in a notebook.
She has a little list that she's just watching.
It's true, though. Like, the same stuff never works for that long in the NFL, and we're kind of seeing league-wide that the same stuff is not working, and you can't buy a big play.
Well, I like
my
point too. I like that coaches, some of these coaches who are hitting adversity. I'm talking about Sean McVay. I'm talking about Matt LaFleur. I'm talking about Kevin O'Connell and what they dealt with since last season. Really, these being forced to deal and adjust and adapt through adversity is making these coaches better. You can see it in front of you. You saw it the way Sean McVay completely changed the Rams' identity last week. Greg, I know you guys talked about that on the recap show. To a 12 personnel team has had to completely overhaul certain elements, but they had that ready to go just in case they did hit adversity. They installed that entire package in the summer and in the spring and then recalled it instead of uploading it fresh, which is a godsend to players because they can recall that memory bank versus actually trying to create something new on the fly. The things that Matt LaFleur is doing with Malik Willis, he is raising the floor of the quarterback. He's accentuating where he's gifted. and he's giving him more answers with all that. They're increasing their motion usage. He's giving him more answers to what the defenses will show him in terms of their pressure, the way that they'll move when space changes against them. Because defenses are smarter than ever, and these coaches are using every tool that they have to try to get those answers from these defenses. But in certain ways, some coaches you're seeing already, and you'll continue to see from the real ones, the way that these offenses and these teams continue to adjust. And the ones who can't are the ones who are probably we're kind of muttering about behind the scenes.
Let's do it in front of the scenes. Like we got a Cowboys-Giants preview coming up. Mike McCarthy stands out to me as a guy who maybe doesn't make game plans as specific to the matchup that he has, and maybe struggles to deal with adversity. We'll get to Dallas Cowboys and Giants in our TNF preview. But I love that. I love that the league is always evolving in that way. It's like it doesn't have to be off. There was actually a moment as I was watching some horrible Broncos tape after week 2, and I was like, I actually kind of miss offenses being this bad. Like it's bringing
that's the most Greg thing I've ever heard in my life.
But it forces
it's
change.
bringing me back to some 2005 49ers or Jimmy Clausen.
Yeah, those were the
Panthers.
days, Greg.
No,
What?
but I just like diversity where there's some truly it's so bad it's good. Those type of movies where it's so bad it's good that it's almost fun. For me, it's
like
a
Fast and Furious. Like you just want a compilation of that again.
But
I just mean diversity where there's big ups, there's big downs, and sometimes it's so bad you can't turn your head
Greg's
away.
a big
I don't mind that.
Here's the moment we're at right now, though. This is defenses are smarter than ever. They're more multiple than ever. They have more answers to all of the millions of things that offenses are doing against them. Defensive coordinators and defensive head coaches are better right now than they have been. And I think that this is going to tell we're at the precipice of the next big shift. We were at one back in 2017, and we're at another one again. And you're going to see this become a catalyst. With a few people in the front and everybody else behind. And that's what I like about this is that and some of it's forced through people not raising their hands and volunteering to be ahead. They just kind of have to be because of the ways that adversity has hit, injuries have hit, the ways that defenses started playing them. They have to change, and they are, but they're bringing their players with them. I think we're entering this golden era of coaching too with the right people. If the right people are, continue to progress, that they're reaching their players in really cool ways where they're bringing their players with them. They're not assigning people into boxes. They're kind of like, you look at what Kevin O'Connell is doing, not just with Sam Darnold, with Justin Jefferson, absolute bona fide star, all-pro receiver. But he's not just using him to get him open. He's using him to also open up all kinds of other answers for the quarterback on any given play, whether the defense is right or wrong. And I think that is what you see with coaches who are really seeking how many different things their players can do with them.
Yeah, it's figuring out what your players do well. It's that's in maximizing that instead of just having a system and this is the system that we run.
But I like that there's a push behind them that they didn't necessarily ask for. I like that they're kind of have to do it versus.
And let's calm down about the whole defenses are dominating it's like when they were talking about we got to ban the cover 2 and stuff. That was silly, but they were talking about the 70s and 80s as if that was some great days of pass catch. Points are still way higher than they were 15, 16 years ago. It's fine.
You mentioned Matt LaFleur, and I know that you guys already covered him, but I just absolutely love his tenderness for Malik Willis.
That's
it's so
there's
pure.
There's a pair there, yeah.
And when he talked about how he can't articulate the way that he has come in here and been able to adapt, and how he's only been there for, that first week, he had only been in Green Bay for 18 days, and then this 27 days. But he was like, I know that you guys think you know how difficult this is, but you don't know. And it was just so sweet and genuine listening to Matt LaFleur talk about him. I loved it.
I just like the use of the word tenderness.
That's exactly what I felt. A tenderness. It felt like there was a real love there between the two of them.
And Malik Willis seems to be a guy that does inspire that sort of tenderness, that he's just a very likable person that you root for. Even in Tennessee, I think that was the case. Yeah, that's been, to me, one of the coolest stories of the entire season. That's a great there. Let's throw out a random Let's go defensive coaches, and I'm thinking about Monday night, but I'm also thinking about throughout the league. But Sean McDermott and Dan Quinn specifically.
Raheem Morris,
going for it on fourth down. It's all just now so accepted that the war is over. We won. the fourth down evangelist one that you don't even notice it, but guys like Sean McDermott this year I've noticed are routinely going for 4th and 2, 4th and 3, 4th and 4 because he realizes, oh, I've got Josh freaking Allen, and he did it on Monday night's game, and if it had been a close game, it would have been a bigger deal. But early in the game, I've noticed that over and over again, and I went and looked. They have traditionally been at the very bottom of the league in terms of going for it on fourth down. So far this year, they've been above average with it. And then Dan Quinn doing it in a key spot, knowing his defense actually isn't good. And so I do like to see these defensive coaches actually finding religion. And I think of McDermott with your boy, Ron Rivera back in the day. It's like when Riverboat Ron started going for fourth down.
Riverboat Sean.
We had a whole,
my God.
We had a whole theme of it for the entire season on Around the NFL. It was such a big thing. Now it happens like his protege, Sean McDermott, and it's all happening quietly because it's like, oh, of course they're going for fourth down in their own end, like early in the game when it's close. But it's cool to see defensive coaches. Now it's like almost everyone's on board.
That's
a
we
like
saw
for me,
Damar
too.
Hamlin too last night get his first interception while we're talking about the Bills, and it was just so poetic that it came on his first start on a Monday night since the January 2nd game, and that Troy and Joe were in the booth in Cincinnati with the other game, and it just all kind of felt so perfect the moment, and the way that the Bills bench reacted to him too. It was like it felt really heartwarming.
Yeah.
It's really crazy to think of what the Bills' record is since the moment Tyler Dunn dropped that story about Sean McDermott trying to motivate his team with 9/11 analogies. Because since then, they've basically been undefeated. So if it was like a different story.
When did that happen?
You don't remember this?
I remember, but when was that?
It was the very lowest moment of last season when it was all falling apart. They were one game over 500. After that, they basically didn't lose a game again the rest of the regular season. Of course, it didn't happen for them in playoffs, but they were a flawed team. And then now they're starting out this season like a house on fire. So I don't know, right at the lowest moment, you know.
A like for me to just piggyback on the Bills talk, because I think we all like what the Bills are doing right now, and that Damar moment was so great.
No,
so much joy in that too, and kind of relief probably too. Just like
and that the refs didn't like call anything either, because they could have if they were kind of not realizing the moment.
Yeah, like excessive celebration
Exactly.
is what she's talking about. Yeah. So I like the general vibes around the Bills. They're fun, creative on offense. Josh Allen, and it's too early to say this, so I'm not really saying it, is playing at an MVP clip. The defense is clearly...
Actually, it's okay to say it if it fits
too early.
my agenda to host the show. Because I picked him to win MVP before the season. So that...
Did.
Josh Allen
It's always
alone,
really
it's
good
not
to
too
be
early.
reminded of when Greg is right, I think. So...
Just doesn't happen enough, you know?
The show.
But the defense that we were all worried, I mean, they're clearly getting coached up. And then I also really, really like that this is an offense with the quarterbacks room and the skill players that all play Settlers of Catan together. Josh Allen.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Are
Josh
you
Allen.
serious?
I've been so excited to talk about this. Josh Allen was talking about this over the summer, and ESPN Alina Getzenberg does a great job over there. She just did a story on it as well. But for those who don't know, Settlers of Catan, a strategy board game. Listen, I am a Settlers of Catan player. I'm decent, good, not great. But I will tell you, if you can healthily get through a serious game of Settlers of Catan and still look this cohesive on offense, like that game ruins friendships, destroys lives, makes people hate each other. So if you can actually get through that game at that competitive level that they're talking about they do, and as a group and still look this good on offense, I'm telling you.
R.I.P. to like the bodies that Jordan's left on the road during Settlers of Catan.
Have you lost friends over this game?
I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, no.
But I'm just saying, like, this game gets really intense. There's backstabbing involved. So the fact that you can actually, like, have a blast playing and then, like...
Have you ever played, Colleen?
No, and I'm
Well, you
wondering
guys are
what
cool,
the
so-
premise
No.
is of this, how long an average game lasts for.
Like
hours
7
and
or
hours. Yeah, hours.
Like,
there's expansion packs you can do. It's a whole thing. We'll get into it.
I played it once at my friend the Vitek's house. Identical twin brothers who are two of my best friends growing up. And we went over there like, oh, you'll love it. And we played Risk together. Risk was one thing. I liked Risk. But one time I came over for Settlers of Catan, and it was like a step too far. I couldn't focus for that long. And I was the one that was just like, yeah, this is too much for me, guys.
There's so much, like, every moment is like constant strategy and like trying to navigate.
Sounds like
and,
my worst
wheel
nightmare.
and deal. It's very, it's total anxiety. It's total anxiety. So I'm
I
just
already
saying,
live with total anxiety. I don't want to play a game that induces more of it.
but that this team can do that together. And like the skill players, the tight ends, the quarterbacks, they all play it together. So that they can do that and like get through it and look this good on the field.
I'm with Colleen. Like, and this has literally happened. Sometimes
It's a playoff
if we're at a
team.
party and like people are kind of playing like party games or whatever, Colleen and I will just be kind of standing talking to each other in the corner because it's like that's too much.
Having
work.
way less fun than me.
Too
Like
stressful.
so much investment. Like how long is this
You
going to
can play
take?
it on your phone now. There are apps and
Okay.
different. Like, come on, guys, let's get into
Oh
it.
my God.
I
I'll play
absolutely love
Jenga
that.
and like backgammon. That's it.
All right, throw us another like, Colleen.
Okay. Sam freaking
Oh my gosh, we
Darnold.
have to talk about him every show.
Yes, we do, because
at with
I
this,
would
Greg?
love to remind you, Greg, that I've been talking about Sam Darnold and the Vikings since before the season started, and I was so excited to watch him throw 4 touchdowns on Sunday. Thank God his knee is okay, by the way, but how about this? He's the first quarterback to start and win each of the Vikings' first 3 games since Brett Favre did it in 2009. They haven't started the Vikings 3-0 since 2016, and
that was a cursed year, though, 2016.
Sure. But outside of the NFC
Shout out
North,
Sam Bradford.
how could you not love the story of Sam Darnold? Bill Belichick was on Pat McAfee, and he had said, everybody is like Darnold except the Jets. The people in Carolina that I talked to really liked him. I know Kevin O'Connell and some of the coaches in Minnesota, they really liked the guy too. So it seems like the only people that didn't like Darnold was the Jets.
I just love that he prepped that line.
And Greg.
That's kind of cool. He definitely did. He prepped that line. He hit it twice. I love that about Bill Belichick. He loves to just like stick it to the Jets. I noticed he was sticking it to the Falcons a week ago, the team that turned him down for a job. Don't think that was a coincidence.
Oh my God.
Love a petty TV moment for sure.
I hope Bill Belichick has a burn book, actually.
he probably does.
He definitely
Yeah,
does. I think
definitely.
that's how he operates through life.
Yeah, I love the Sam Darnold story. I know that you're creaking into the lane with us here, Greg. I know that you're like, waiting for the bottom to fall out, the other shoe to drop. But
Let your hair down, Greg.
yeah.
Why? I don't have
Come
to.
join me with the Vikings.
I can recognize he's playing well.
I thought I heard you use the word awesome in a recent recap.
Oh.
show.
Wow, you're using my own words again.
His face
I've never been
He
more
just
powerful in this moment.
actually twitched. His face did.
Look at Greg.
Greg, your passing touchdown leaders through 3 weeks: Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield.
Is Gino up there? Or no?
He's
Uh,
playing.
no, he's not.
playing
There
so
for
well.
yards.
He's one of my likes that I didn't get on here. He's playing.
He probably has more
is how I win
rushing
you back, Greg.
touchdowns because they are all tied with 4, and then there's a 5-way tie for second place with 3 touchdowns.
What are we talking about here?
Andy
We're
Dalton.
entering week 4 and tied for 3 touchdowns
I know.
is like in 4th or 5th.
Passing. Some of them are mixing in
Passing touchdowns is
Andy Dalton-
are so down. Yeah, Gino
Andy Dalton
actually
only played
has
1 game too.
3 touchdowns, which shows you just evaluate the ball.
As a side note too on the Vikings, but I really the Brian Flores hire.
is
I mean,
my
I know that we've talked about this a lot, and it's rightfully gotten praise. I do love this is a sort of a nod to the Ringer's Stephen Ruiz, who I think came up with the original meme for this, but Brian Flores' game plans have sort of become acid tests for quarterbacks. I have to think that playing against him in practice, because just like everybody who kind of has come through either Rams, 49ers buildings, they run a lot more of a live scout or like good on good situations. Everyone calls them something different, but they run 11 on 11s as live as possible at certain periods through the course of the practice. So you are getting those looks against Brian Flores' like mad scientist scheme. I think that's an egoless hire. If you're like the quarterback, the former quarterback, who was a journeyman backup, and then you go out and hire like the guy who tortures quarterbacks. You know, I just think that this is just a really cool pairing. And even against CJ Stroud, what was really cool that they did was they blitzed CJ Stroud on over half of his dropbacks in the first half last week. And then all of a sudden they completely flipped it on his head, the plan on its head. And then they totally stopped, not totally, I mean, 20% of the time, stop blitzing at that rate, and then they just dropped everybody. So it basically is like a blender situation.
Sure.
And having a different game plan for the second half than the first half, or the second quarter than the first
just
quarter.
outstanding.
That's what the great ones.
Yeah.
And Sam Darnold has improved significantly against the blitz, to your point, going against
Sleuthing.
Brian
We got some
Flores.
sleuthing.
Because he's thrown 3 of his 4 touchdowns against the blitz, which is a far cry from 2019 when he threw 3 interceptions against the blitz versus New England, which was the second most in any game since 2018. So he was not
healing.
good before. It is healing.
Sam Darnold is healing.
And he's
Okay.
healing us, too.
Oh, I love the drop. We're
There's-
going to get spicy
He is
next
not
week.
getting on.
Good job
He's
behind the
not
glass.
getting on QBR.
I'm going to sneak him in.
And I gotta check myself. Oh,
Greg,
shoot.
Greg needs a 4th in this room because the numbers
I
are
know,
not going to be
replacing-
on his side.
Weiss, are you available next week? Wherever you are. Okay, I was wondering if I'm being like a little bit of a hater watching Darnold's tape every week and thinking there are still like 2 or 3 of the
Of
Darnold
course.
plays that I'm not putting him in like the top 5 of how he's played so far this year. And then I tried to.
No, I don't think rational people are doing
Okay,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
But
He's producing
the
them.
numbers are
Yeah.
great. When he holds the ball, I think bad things still happen. So I did look at some of the numbers. He has been great against the blitz, making quick decisions. He has been great when throwing the ball under 2.5 seconds. So I think that's where the offensive scheme is winning for him, and he's being decisive. But he still holds the ball a lot. 7th highest time to throw in the league. He's not like having these turnover-worthy plays. That's good. But when he's held the ball, he hasn't really been that effective. When he's been out of play action, he hasn't been that effective. It's like 12 yards per attempt in play action, like 6.8 without, which isn't crazy. Like that's Jared Goff. If he can turn into Jared Goff, he's going to make a lot of money and have a great career. The thing that makes me wonder if he is going to develop and have so much time to play in this system and get better. Actually, in this game against Houston, I thought he was much better when he did hold the ball, not making bad decisions that I think was a problem for him for 2 weeks. So if that's a sign of like progress, I thought his game against Houston was particularly good.
And using play action has often been like the go-to cheat code for coordinators and coaches and when they're trying to raise the floor of a quarterback. But actually what they're doing also in tandem with that, and it certainly is raising the floor for Sam Darnold, is they're actually using their motions to reset and realign formations, to pull defenders back down toward the line of scrimmage. They're using motion as sort of the cheat code in this way because they're changing basically the spacing on the field with it versus just sending a guy to get information from the defense. So it's helping Sam find more space, basically.
And yeah, like the numbers when he is getting rid of the ball. 3rd in completion percentage over expected, 2nd in EPA per dropback, 2nd in success rate when he throws under 2.5 seconds. Like, so that's coaching. That's Sam Darnold. And you're right about the acid test for Brian Flores. It's like quarterbacks are taking acid when they're playing the Minnesota
You couldn't
Vikings.
wait to say that.
I don't know.
I love that for you.
What would happen? What
don't
would
know.
that look like?
Ooh, Will Levis.
It might just be fun.
Oh.
It might just be fun. Like the month that me and like 10 of my restaurant employee friends just were like taking acid on Martha's Vineyard. One of the best months of my
Were you a
entire
waiter?
life. With that, I was. Let's take a quick break. I mean, it honestly felt like
I
good,
like this day.
Clean.
This is a
Bus
good day.
boy.
fun. Take a quick break and
A
we will be
host.
back after this. Back on NFL Daily, and yeah, we're feeling positive. We're in the flow of the season.
We
It's
are.
week 4, so it's a lot of likes. I do have a lot of dislikes too, but we're gonna get to that next.
I can't believe that.
We're gonna keep it ordered and keep it with the likes. Why don't you go next, Colleen?
Okay. First of all, I love when brothers are both in the NFL. It's always super fun, especially if they play against each other. But in this instance, we have JJ Watt and TJ Watt, and JJ Watt is interviewing TJ Watt, and I think it was at the half of the Steelers game. So in case you didn't hear it, listen to what he said.
All right, I know you're trying to get in that right headspace. I know you and Danny just announced that you guys are pregnant and expecting your first child. Me personally, knowing what that Y means and knowing how important that is, I wanted to give you a little gift before you head back into the locker room to say congratulations on your new child and wish you guys all the best.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you trying to mess up my headspace. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go back and lock in now.
In 10 games after I had Koa. So I'm just saying, we've seen a lot of great things. We might see some great
We
things.
get it, Jage. We get it. Keep pumping yourself up. It's awesome.
You know what? Go back in the locker room. Go Walt. Have a great day, big guy.
All right, so that was on CBS's NFL Today. And it was just so funny because JJ gives TJ this little tiny, like, number 90 jersey that says dad on the back of it. It's like a very sweet, wholesome moment. And then when TJ says, like, you know, I appreciate you trying to mess my headspace up, whatever, I'm going to go lock back in. But when he says, we get it, James, we get it, keep pumping yourself up. That is so great. I love it so much. And TJ Watt is saying essentially what we all are thinking all the time when JJ does what he does. And I love to see it alive and well within the family.
It's very little brother, big brother energy. I absolutely love it. And it is funny because I thought about this lately. And when did JJ Watt get the hair? He looks completely different. I don't know why. I haven't seen that for a while.
Is it
always had
plugs?
hair.
What is
No, not that. But
Oh.
I'm just saying that the haircut. He has sort of like a CBS
news anchor
newsman
swoop.
haircut where
Oh.
it just
The
looks
swoop.
very different. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it. And I love that because JJ Watt has made a great transformation. He used to be the target of a lot of jokes on the Around the NFL podcast. Chris used to get, Wes, you know, who this studio is named after, used to get so mad about his self-promotion and just
But then we got
thought he was
Russell
phony.
Wilson.
And
so.
but then I really think as he got older and more mature in the end of his career and he has a baby and a wife and everything, he actually became much more likable and a little more self-aware. And so I still like
He can't help
Rodrigue.
himself,
But he
though,
still can't
still.
help himself. It's
I
still
love
in there.
I love the sibling, like, I'm going to use your thing to talk about my thing.
Yes.
Like, that's the classic
10 sacks in
sibling
10 games after we had Koa.
stat at the ready. Like,
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to jump in with a couple Steelers likes.
Okay.
First of all, I just like the Steelers team. Was not expecting them to.
they've grown on you quite a bit.
They fit.
Art Smith rebrand.
They fit the whole 2024 mindset, except they can't really run the ball. So I guess maybe they don't. But
They're
just that,
trying.
just that the Steelers are doing well
are.
in this season fit somehow defensively. But number one, they're young defensive players. Like, it annoys me that it took them this long to get Nick Herbig out there, because they don't let TJ Watt get any rest whatsoever when he could use some rest, and you have a great third rusher, but it took Alex Highsmith getting hurt for Herbig to get out there. He gets out there for 8 pass rush snaps. He gets 4 pressures, 2 sacks. This guy has been electric in the preseason. Sometimes it's nice to see the preseason validate, your time spent watching it, and he's awesome. And then Joey Porter Jr. is just, he's like their new
How perfect.
Joey Porter. And I know they play different positions, but in terms of the attitude that he brings and the energy that he brings, their defense, I think, feeds off of him. And he's going one-on-one with these great wide receivers. He's a dog.
They are so classic to me, but in a very new age way. The premium positions on this defensive roster, pass rusher and corner, especially like elite number 1 corner. That's so classic. It's vintage in a very Steelers-y way, the way that they play football, but it's also a very smart, well-coached team as well for what 2024 is right now. And then the offense is catching up a little bit on the other side.
Yes, Justin Fields is playing
Throw it
against
to the
type.
middle. Throw
So,
it to the middle.
Yeah, we actually have a spray chart, I believe, that we could show if you're watching on YouTube. By the way, appreciate you all. We've seen the numbers go up in terms of the subscribers. So subscribe.
that's fun.
Tell your friends about the podcast, even if you're not a video viewer. Just listen to the audio. But yeah, let's see the spray chart of Justin Fields, and let's also think about, yes, he's throwing to the middle of the field. That's one thing he hadn't done in the past very effectively. He has the 3rd highest completion percentage over expected in the entire NFL this year. So he's hitting the throws that he's being asked to make. And I think the reason that's so high is because it's a lot of out routes into tight windows where you have to have a really strong arm, and he's hitting those. He scrambled only once last week. That was the lowest scramble rate he's ever had in his career. Their design run game with him has not been effective, but I actually think it's impressive that he's playing so well without really his run game adding that much to the mix. He is winning from the pocket. And yeah, if you're watching, you can see the chart.
Wow.
It's a lot of short passes. It's a lot over the middle, but it's because that's what the defense was going to do. They decided not to really rush him, to protect him against scrambling, and he made them pay in a tough matchup against the Chargers. And then one other thing, in week 2, he struggled against the blitz throughout his career, and they blitzed the hell out of him. The Broncos did, and he was really good standing up to him. So it's stacking all these little small improvements you can tell he worked on in his own game, and the coaching staff deserves some credit too. And it's adding up to a really effective version of Justin Fields. I think he's a top 10 quarterback so far this season.
What you said about the designed run game with him is not necessarily effective, but then, talking about how the defense played him and so they changed their game plan, at least showing that designed run attack or the threat of it is why the defense is changing to play him like that. And then him showing this extra element, we do have another counter move. It is an adjustment. It is us showing on tape what you're afraid of us doing, you as a defense trying to counter and stop it, and then us pulling out another card. That's not something this offense has been able to do before in a few years.
Which is why, like, Mike Tomlin did the thing Tuesday again where he's like, yeah, Justin Fields is planning to start again because Russell Wilson's not healthy. I'll make that decision when it comes. I mean,
that's one of my dislikes.
Oh, okay.
Anyone still talking about a quarterback switch in Pittsburgh? I mean,
that's fair. That's fair. Should we squeeze in any more likes before we get to the dislikes?
I have one like because I yelled about them for fair reasons because they were playing atrociously on offense. But the Carolina Panthers, there's a lot to criticize them for the first 2 weeks of the season. I'm going to give them some well-earned love here. I mostly like the Panthers' offensive line. Ike Ekwonu is still struggling. He's sort of the weak spot here. 11 pressures allowed. That's obviously not great, the left tackle. But the rest of the 4 offensive linemen have allowed only 16 combined pressures through these 3 games. And the interior of Austin Corbett, Robert Hunt, and Damian Lewis have only allowed 7 pressures the entire season so far. And this is great for the Andy Dalton renaissance here. The red-haired guys in the league are apparently
you know how I love Dalton and Darnold.
Yeah, so it's really great for him in terms of it's still the same. It would still be the same issue that they talked about of wanting to really shore up the interior against interior pressure. That's the same thing with Andy Dalton. Still needs that tool. And this offensive line I think deserves some kudos and some love. I like them so far.
I mean, the Dalton sans doesn't really roll off the tongue.
I know.
But the glow up that he's had, just his looks later in his career, and now he could match it with his on-field play. Panthers, Bengals. I know it's 1-2 versus 0-3. That's on my screen. That is one of my
top. Is that
top.
This week?
That's this week.
No,
Dalton,
that's so exciting.
Dalton getting to bury the Bengals season at 0-4. That's pretty delicious.
I love that.
I do too. And yeah, I'm checking out their running game. It's been fine. Like, okay, it hasn't been great, but
the protection is there.
Last week it was fine, and so
because he's throwing the ball a crap load still and producing the way that we thought other quarterbacks were going to produce this season. And quarterback play is down, and Andy Dalton's riding in on a horse and saying,
I'll
save the passing game, and like his protection is there. It's great.
Okay, so you talked about anyone still talking about a quarterback change in Pittsburgh. That was a dislike. We'll switch. I'll just do a quick one first. AFC South has been bumming me out.
Yeah.
Remember how I talked it up as like, oh, this is going to be the season the AFC South finally matters.
We were wrong about that.
But they are 2-8.
I remember you saying that.
2-8 outside the division. Yeah.
I don't know what is going on with the Jags.
It was going to be exciting because the quarterbacks were going to be exciting. Trevor Lawrence, it's not happening. Will Levis, it's kind of a horror.
Happening in a weird way.
Even CJ Stroud, I think, has been uneven. I think he's played well, but their passing game has been uneven. Their success rate is very low, actually, as a passing attack. Like, they've had some big plays, but on a down-to-down basis, they haven't been great. Not that I'm talking about the Texans when I'm talking about the struggles here. And then the Browns. I mean, not the Browns.
The Browns. Wait, what?
The Colts and Anthony Richardson, just rougher than I could have imagined from a passing game perspective on a down-to-down basis.
The Colts really thought this was going to be the year.
They won.
The Colts once again.
They won last week. They won last week.
I'll be back next year.
I'm sorry they hurt you.
That was a big week. Like, it's a long season, I would say, for Colts, especially here. I mean, Jags and Titans are in a hole. But Colts, you just got to scratch out some wins, and maybe it'll round into shape by November. If you're just like 3-4 after 7 weeks or something, they could be fine.
Yeah. As I said in July and August and now September, I really wanted to see not only Trevor Lawrence take a step forward, but the coaching staff take a step forward. That was really embarrassing, this last game that they played. And it just was disheveled. It looked like not cohesive at any point. And one of my dislikes, because I don't relish talking about this, but one of my dislikes is that this is the time of year from basically now onward where you start to sort of, do the thing where you're walking down the hall and you see someone who, you want to avoid like having a hard conversation with, and you sort of don't make eye contact. And this is like starting to be lame duck.
How many people have you fired?
Season. This is all my Catan opponents, actually. This is all my Settlers of Catan.
Jourdan.
This is all my Settlers of Catan opponents, actually. Like, I avoid them. I avoid them now.
Jourdan is ruthless.
I hear you. It is a little early for that, but
now onward is.
I hear you. We're about to talk about the Cowboys. Doug Peterson, I spoke about on the Monday Night Recap how there was an edict before the season. They have to win, and everyone in the building knows the score, and that's tough.
And you know what, though, too? I mean, I cover a lot of like coaching cycle stuff, and this is the time of year where, the agents start to gather all the materials and start figuring out who would partner with each other and what jobs might be coming open. So like it or not, it happening this early, those conversations about several places that are sort of either teetering, or you get sort of an ominous sense that things are just continuing to go south. You're thinking about the possibility of who is going to be placed in there next.
Jaguars are, that's one where people are definitely looking and thinking. They're looking at Trevor Lawrence and saying, I can fix him.
I can fix him.
I just wonder if they're going to switch play callers at some point. I know Press Taylor was calling plays last year. He's calling plays this year, but at some point.
Although weirdly, Doug Peterson won't admit it in public.
I know. I don't
yet,
understand.
we could see his lips moving, Doug. They have cameras.
It's like the Geico commercial. We could see you, Carl.
I have so many more dislikes, but why don't you do a dislike, Colleen?
Okay. Wow. Braxton Berrios in Miami getting pantsed.
Oh, that's who it was?
Oh, I was like, where is she going with this?
It was.
No. Yeah.
And I first of all, because we talked about it as soon as we walked into the studio.
Because Damashek put it on his Instagram. I did.
Colleen walked, you walked into this. You've basically showed us the photo.
I mean, we've all seen the photo, but Damashek had it on Instagram. I thought it was escaping this thing, and then there it was.
No, and I was
right
like, well, how does this happen? And Greg was like, pretty easy. I'm like, well, then why doesn't it happen more? How did this go so wrong for him? Like, I hate it. It wasn't seen on the broadcast, which is great for him, but that's just very embarrassing.
I can't remember who it was, but there was a player on the 49ers who I remember had his pants pulled down years and years ago on the broadcast.
No.
Yeah, you saw.
This section should not be called dislikes. It should be called things we're not over the moon about.
Wow.
Sorry.
Thanks, Dad. I did find a YouTube 2-minute, 5-second long highlight reel of NFL's players' pants falling down.
Oh, on your work computer?
This is not. I dislike all of this.
Yeah, I dislike it. I dislike it.
I dislike all the injuries that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, so many.
There's a lot of really fun, interesting players. Injuries happen every year. It just seems like they're compounding so early in the season. And, certainly there will be discussions about the preseason and player safety. And especially as the seasons get longer than ever, more players are putting more workloads on their bodies. And also as the physicality, which we've talked about, of this game increases toward the run game versus a heavier passing game, you're going to have a heavier toll taken on your body over time. This is obviously like marginal things over time. But if you're really talking about this, I fear that this is going to continue to be an issue. Really, really interesting.
Is there any proof, though, that there's more injured players? Because we go through this every year. I feel this, and we're just like, there's so many injuries.
Injuries happen every
the stars.
Injuries do happen every year. It just seems like every week, though, we're seeing like a headliner name.
Oh yeah, like so many teams get devastated, but it's not a sport that should be played by anyone expecting to have like short-term or long-term health. It's brutal.
Correct.
Right. I mean, it's getting
more brutal.
Cold fact of the sport.
The off season is getting less brutal in terms of what they are, the toll that they're taking on their body, in terms of like what they're the CBA says that they can and can't do in practices, those types of things. That's getting less. The game itself, I posit that it's getting a little bit more brutal because of the arc of the philosophical shift that we're seeing. And over time, you're going to see that brutality. You're going to have to adjust. Everyone, because of the arc of the league right now, everybody eventually will have to adjust, including the sports science departments and the NFL training staffs.
Well, and they can start wearing the different helmets.
The Guardian
The
cap?
Guardian
Yeah.
caps. I'm surprised that didn't become a bigger talking point after the Tua thing, that we have this technology that literally everyone could do, and there's no reason that everyone's not wearing them except we don't think it looks cool. So we are kind of saying what we care about.
Yeah.
We don't care that much. And it's not going to say it's going to be 100% prevention for concussions, and that's only one type of injury. But so far, it has had 100%.
But it takes a while for this, players to adapt to any type of change. And when you're playing at this high of a level and you have something that's a significant
take the choice out of their hand.
difference.
Just like the NFL could do it. They could just make
They could.
If it was like, it's going to take either a rash of concussions or something else drastically happening, and then it'll slowly happen. Shout out to the players that are doing it already. Like, it is kind of cool to see the players have taken that initiative. There aren't that many. There's a couple on the Colts, I noticed, but there aren't that many. Why don't you give me a dislike, Colleen?
Sad Travis.
Ooh.
Sad Travis Kelce. I don't love seeing it. He's not been involved in any of these games as much as he was last year, and all of the shots of him just looking forlorn on the bench are just crushing me. I don't love it at all.
If only that guy could get a W somewhere.
You know?
Somewhere in life. If only the universe
I
would
feel
throw
like
him a bone.
The league is better and more
God.
entertaining when Travis Kelce is happy.
I think you're right.
That's
It'll
a good take.
It'll happen eventually,
He's
right? He really is drawing lots of coverage. That's not totally made up. There was this play where I saw Rashee Rice bust wide open, basically because the two underneath defenders go towards Travis Kelce. And it's like, you don't need to send those two defenders at Travis Kelce right now. I'd send a second one with Rashee Rice, who's running right past you for about 60 yards. That is sad. All right, I've got some sad ones. I've got a bunch still, unfortunately.
Okay.
All right, the
He's
Drake.
trying not
What
to
do you got?
smile as he says.
I'm not happy, but like
Just laughing
just
about
the
them all.
direction that Caleb Williams and Drake May's seasons are going in particular, just in contrast to Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Drake May hasn't played, but the situation that's there for him to enter in New England is not good. They are dead last in pass rush win rate so far. So, it's not working with Jacoby Brissett. They have no wide receivers who get open. I'm not really confident in the scheme to get them open, and the pass protection isn't good. So when he does play, and he should play eventually, I'm just worried about how I'm not confident that they're going to come up with good solutions. And then Caleb Williams, a step in the right direction. He had way more Caleb-y plays against the Colts, but still Bears 30th.
Like 52 times.
Oh my
Right.
God,
A lot of
so
that
many
was
times.
a lot of it was coming back when it was effective late in the game when they were down 2 scores. Like, he was at he was at 30 late third, and then it was working kind of in the fourth quarter. It was the best stretch he had of his career. But yeah, pass rush win rate there, 30th. Not sure if they're going to be able to scheme their way out of it. Keenan Allen's not healthy, might not be the full Keenan Allen. It's just a little bit of a bummer.
There's some heat there too. A couple of sort of social media posts, whatever, that popped in terms of the linemen in the locker room talking about their bewilderment at the speed option call late in the game. I mean, it's starting early there, frankly, is what I'm
Yikes.
saying.
And the tackles are
3
playing
weeks?
pretty well, but it's the
it's the
three
interior, yeah.
interior guys. The 49ers, you mentioned the injuries. So Javon Hargrave, that's part of the injury situation to me. He has a torn triceps. He's missing the season. That was an injury that didn't exist in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and you can surmise different reasons why different muscle groups are happening to burst now or not. But in terms of how you're training, and lots of things could be affecting that. But there are more of those types of injuries. He's out for the season. And so the 49ers defense is on my list of things I dislike. I'm going to give you some numbers. 24th in defensive EPA, 30th in net yards per attempt allowed to passers, 30th yards per play allowed, 21st in DVOA in general. They're just bad. And I'm thinking, why? And I think they're thin. There's bigger weak spots. Leonard Floyd is not playing well for them, and he's playing a lot
He's playing hurt. Remember, he hurt.
Yeah, and that's probably why he's not playing well.
I've seen it before.
Like, there's no rotation. Now you take away Javon Hargrave, they're thin. They have just problem spots. Isaac Yiadom just picked on by Matthew Stafford in that game. That's a really weak spot. Devondre Campbell, who's playing at linebacker, they really missed Dre Greenlaw. And then their coordinator, Nick Sorensen, it just might be one of those things kind of that Belichick went through. We talked about the disease of more in terms of what happens to teams when you have a lot of success. This isn't the disease of more, but I think it happens to winning teams that, like, they're now on what? Kyle's on his 6th defensive coordinator he's ever hired. I mean, he nailed it with those first 3 or 4, but then they fired Steve Wilkes last year, and maybe it's a little bit of a brain drain situation and a talent drain situation.
There was a report that came out last week, too, that Kyle Shanahan tried to hire Jeff Ulbrich.
Oh my gosh,
from
really?
The New York Jets. Yeah, Mike Silver reported this at the San Francisco Chronicle, and it was
Jets defensive coordinator.
Me, yeah, the Jets defensive coordinator. To me, that was like pretty telling. Again, that he's thinking there is some brain drain. He lost his. I'm not going to say this right. Continuitis guys, the ones who were there for a while, who he developed in house, who stuck around for a while. He lost them. They're head coaches,
and they happen to be like some of the best defensive minds in the league.
Yeah, and can't find the people necessarily who, to right or wrong, to his own specifications, are doing the things that those guys did.
Also, did you see, by the way, that Christian McCaffrey is going to Germany for his Achilles tendonitis?
That's never a good sign either. Another thing that wasn't happening in the 70s and 80s. So, but their offense has been fine. Brock Purdy balled out in that game. That was one of, actually, I think, the best games of Brock Purdy's career, weirdly, and they lost. I'm actually not worried about their offense. Their offense, by the numbers and by the eye test, has been fine. Yeah, Flores cooked them up a little bit, but their offense is good. The last one I did want to get in, Deshaun Watson. How brutal is watching Deshaun Watson play football right now? And then my dislike is actually the media coverage of Deshaun Watson. I actually think people are so uncomfortable talking about Deshaun Watson because of who he is as a person, and also because of their relationships at the highest levels of our industry with his agent, David Mulligetta, who was very powerful. And I think that relationship that he has with the media, I said it a lot, that I think that trade would not have happened if there was more pushback from the media because of that. That not only is that turning out to be like the worst trade in NFL history, but weirdly, he's not getting a ton of heat for being the absolute dog of a player that he is. I mean, he's lost. He's holding on to the ball. He's not accurate. He's not athletic. Imagine, I'm trying to think of a good comp, someone that young in his career was a top 10 quarterback. And then for a pretty long stretch of time, last year when he played, the year before, certainly these 3 games, was not just not what he used to be, but literally one of the worst quarterbacks in the league by any metric. He's second to last or third to last in everything. It's just a question of Bryce Young's behind him in everything. Skylar Thompson is now behind him in some things. And that's Deshaun Watson. And yet there's weirdly not a lot of hey, why are we benching this guy? Aren't we trying to win football games? And I think it's because people are uncomfortable, and I think it's because of the agent. But I think
Greg
he's getting
gets
less
taken out by a sniper.
It's if Trevor Lawrence was playing this bad, and that's not even a great comp. I'm saying this bad, worst quarterback in the league. Wouldn't that be leading all the shows? I mean, forget Dak Prescott. Imagine if Dak Prescott played this bad for a month, much less for 3 seasons. People would go insane. I know it's Cleveland,
different market, to be fair. But I will say,
or Daniel Jones. That's a better example.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones has never been close to the heights. And again, it's a different market. But
no, but that's a good comp. That is a good comp.
People know Deshaun Watson's a big superstar. We're not talking about this superstar who is sinking this franchise because of the way he's playing.
There's no upside.
I think there's a part of the nuance here is that there's it seems to be a sense of helplessness from the organization itself who made this decision because of the contract. So it's what the solution is, right? And there is no sort of you can't move in this. It's suffocating you. It's just it is one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
They have the ability to make a change, though.
I think they're going. I think they're going to if he plays like this another couple weeks. I think it's
You think it takes 2 more weeks?
I get why they came into this season well, let's try it again, but this time he'll stay healthy, and you had to try it again maybe because of the contract. But I do think it's getting to the point he's unplayable. You don't think the other players on his team see it?
And I don't think that people who generally do know what they're looking at in terms of football, like there's smart people in that building. What I'm saying is, I feel like this is a ownership situation. I feel like it's the contract itself is holding a lot of people's hands behind their backs in that building.
Jameis Winston. Let's see. Let's go.
Let's ride.
That would be fun. I mean, the sneaks aren't really fooling anyone. All right, that was it for the dislikes. Had to get that one in. Let's talk about this Giants and Cowboys game. We'll do it after the break. I like this game.
Me too.
We are back on NFL Daily, and yes, it is time for your Door to More presented by DoorDash.
Let's go.
Jourdan had the temerity to ask me as we're going to break, do you really like this Cowboys-Giants game? Well, first of all, I'd be dying for this game in the desert of May. But second of all, how dare you imply that I would ever be anything but 100% genuine with the audience,
How dare I? How dare I suggest that?
I really am excited for this game because I think losing teams have bigger stakes early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually a reason to it. When they entered the fourth quarter in the Commanders-Bengals game, I thought this is a big moment in this season. It's a real deal Super Bowl contender. We thought that's about to go to 0-3. So there's more stakes than if you're just 2-1 and it's like another game. And for the Cowboys, this is a big spot.
For Mike McCarthy, this is a big spot.
Yes. So Mike McCarthy has been taking some heat. And he is starting to sound like he feels the pressure. His players just uniformly, Jourdan Lewis, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dak Prescott, all said separately that we need to do a better job with the details, with the preparation, as if they were sending a message to, I don't know if it was other players or it was the coaches or what, but let's listen to Mike McCarthy asked about it on Monday.
Nick Harris, Forward Star Telegram. I know you said you guys don't have a ton of time for corrections this week, but with Jourdan Lewis talking about details, Michael Parsons last night talking about accountability, how do you kind of work those conversations in this?
Pretty dramatic there, Nick. I tell you must practice that one. Jeez, I mean, well, hey, Thursday's schedule. I mean, that's what we're on. I mean, it's we didn't win the game, so I think that's part of where we are. I mean, so. Yeah, I think they do a good job of answering your questions. It's emotional after the game, so I'm not ever going to referee emotion on the field or after a game.
That's some sass there from Mike McCarthy.
I thought that question was the appropriate amount of dramatic, considering how this has been going.
It wasn't dramatic at all. Shout out to Nick Harris for asking a good question.
That is what I'm saying.
That's so weird that he accused him of practicing the question ahead of time as well.
That gave me, you're feeling some heat vibes, because that's just like a coach lashing out. It's like someone taking it out on
lack of preparation. What about being prepared to answer that question if your players were publicly talking about it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I heard some speculation on a Cowboys podcast, just like, maybe that came right after a meeting with Jerry. You know what I mean? He's just in like a bad mood.
I could see that.
Mike McCarthy.
Yeah. Who also, by the way, is genuinely like a good dude, seems like. But it just also is like, man, when coaches feel the heat like that, the lame duck conversation, that type of thing.
Yeah.
That's when, people get real tight.
You can tell that wasn't about the actual question.
Yeah, that wasn't about the question or the person. That was about him and only him.
Although maybe he would know that he's taking it as a shot of like, we're not that prepped, and he's in a lame duck year that you mentioned. I mentioned earlier, like, to me, they are not like a very game plan specific type of team. They kind of run what they run, and I didn't think they attacked some of the weaknesses of the Ravens that well. Mike Zimmer said going into the game, it was a prove it game against the Ravens.
Wow, what'd they prove?
That's what I'm saying. Like, especially the linebacker.
They need help with their run defense
and safety level. I know the Giants aren't like a great running team, but I think they're a little more specific and intentional in what they do. Brian Dable on offense, and they've had some positive things. And I think their offensive line is solid. I think this is the best offensive line the Giants have had in like a decade. It's like a reasonable offensive line. That's a good place to start.
Devin Singletary has a juicy matchup, I think, in this game because the Cowboys defense, as we're talking about them right now, they've allowed 190 and 274 rushing yards the past 2 weeks. So more than 220 of those yards have come before contact. They've missed 32 tackles this season. And on those plays, they've allowed 241 yards, which is third most. DeMarcus Lawrence has missed 9 alone. Singletary, he's done a really good job making guys miss, forced 19 missed tackles through 3 weeks, which is third most in the entire league. But I think that because Dallas can't stop the run, they've had no pass rush either, at least the past 2 games. So teams, they just haven't been in long passing situations on those critical third downs. So opposing quarterbacks have had a ton of time to just like picnic if they wanted to. And like we saw it with Lamar Jackson and what he was able to do. Plus the Cowboys offense was completely asleep for the first 3 quarters of that game, finally woke up in the fourth, or I guess you could see it as the Ravens weren't able to close out a game once again in the fourth quarter.
I think this is an opportunity too for Brian Daboll and the Giants to start doing a little bit more of what has been somewhat effective, especially more recently, which is getting design runs in for Daniel Jones. Next Gen says he's recorded the 5th most designed quarterback rushes this season, resulting in the 4th most such yards. And so if you can add that type of layer, that threat, like we talked about earlier, that threat of that type of run against a defensive front that's already porous, last in the league in yards per game rushing defense. If you can add that and then also just have a straightforward running back attack as well, that gives them all kinds of nightmares to think about when they're already struggling that much to defend the run.
Right. Let's give some love to the Giants. 2 weeks ago, we're saying, is this going to be Daniel Jones' last game? That was me. My bad. 2 positive games. 2 positive games in a row. You're playing the Browns defense last week. He got away with a couple Daniel Jonesy plays, so there was some fortune there.
I mean, the way that they opened that game, they completely up the beginning of that game.
Colleen, this is a program
This is the best
that
day.
I want my child to listen to. No, I'm kidding. You're right. They started that game that way, but then you think about what Daniel Jones, and yeah, he had an interception that was called back, but he started 18 for 20 in a game against the Cleveland Browns. That's good coaching. I think he's played better in terms of his decisions. And then they have a real football guy in Malik Neighbors.
Oh my God.
He's a miracle.
You know what? Like, the great catches are one thing. I really got into the 4th down. Like, now you can give him the ball on 4th down as a runner in a key spot. And then he had a pass breakup where Jones was one of those Daniel Jones plays where it was going to be intercepted. And Neighbors comes flying in and knocks it down. I'm like, oh, that's a football guy.
Oh my
Here's
God.
what I think. So you're seeing like all of this potential here. They're trying different things with the quarterback in the run game. They're trying a couple. You can hand it off to Malik Neighbors, and what they're doing almost seems to hint to me like they're sneakily sort of setting up different types of misdirection plays, sweeps, and end arounds, things like that, especially against the front that is just gassed on the other side. And Malik Neighbors has been sent to motion on 31 snaps, which is the highest of anyone else on his team. And a lot of it's at snap motion, which to me talks about the potential down the road of taking these handoffs. And again, adding like 3 layers into your run game, 3 dimensions into your run game that there is no way this Cowboys defense is prepared for if they keep playing the way that they have.
Giants are going to win this game, right? Like,
I don't know if I'm going that far. They're 4.5 point underdogs, which to me is way too big. And so
I'm taking the Giants.
I think I'm taking the Cowboys. It's a really important game for them. And I think the Giants are better. And so I'm threading the needle. I feel better about the Giants
You're picking both.
No, yeah, that's what I mean. I feel better about the Giants plus 4.5 than I do either team winning the game. But I am going to trust in talent. But I think game plan wise, I trust Daboll to do more to help his players win than McCarthy coming up with some schemes. It's like, where are there other guys? Like, let's get a little more for. I literally wrote this down and thought this is not a good sign. We need more Turpin. We need more Lipke. That's their.
Oh my God.
That's their like 4th string receiver who's more of a gadget guy, but is so explosive. And then Hunter Lipke, who's their fullback, but is actually kind of awesome. But the Giants secondary is cheeks. It's rough. So if Like if you get,
we got quite a theme on this show today.
It's rough. Like they wanted Deonte Banks to be a top cornerback. He's just not. Adoree Jackson is hurt. Like there should be guys open for the Cowboys.
They're gonna have to throw it because they're not running it well either.
No.
They're not built for 2024. I've been thinking about who are the teams not built for this new run-based world we're in.
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys might be your number one team on the list because they can't run the ball and they can't stop the run.
They have no big plays. They can't score touchdowns. It's a real problem.
Man, it would be something. Giants fans out there, I can't remember the last time I rooted for you, but I'm rooting for you in this game. Just
Same.
the chaos of it all. But I'm taking the Cowboys to win by 3. You know.
Nice.
You want to pick?
I was waiting for you to introduce my probably losing pick because I am terrible at picking.
Okay.
Listeners have not figured
We all
that
are.
out.
Everyone is.
I am horrific at picking, but I am picking the Giants in this one. Sorry, Giants fans, if that means that your team loses because I'm terrible at picking. But I am picking it. I just think the Giants just can do more things to antagonize this Cowboys defense. I think that is this matchup is glaringly obvious for those reasons. And Brian Daboll is also kind of coaching with his back against the wall in a lot of ways.
Yep. Their pass rush played awesome last week. Dexter Lawrence, one of the very best in the league. Brian Burns coming along against a Cowboys line that hasn't been playing great. Like even Zach Martin's first ballot Hall of Famer, but he is not at that high level. You just see the erosion from the Cowboys. Let's enjoy it on Thursday night. I'll be with Danny Heifetz, who's a Giants fan
awesome.
from The Ringer. I really like him.
You're buckling in for a Giants game with Danny. Good luck to you.
In the Fantasy Fantasy Hour over at The Ringer. That's what I'm calling it. All right, let's say goodbye to you. What a great show. Enjoyed having you guys
Truly.
in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio. Love you guys. And love our preview show.
Love
We
you
will
back.
have
Like,
Steve Weiss.
not dislike.
Yeah.
like
Stuff we like. This show.
stuff we like. Each other.
Also, like Weiss Claybon will be with me, and we'll do the preview for Thursday.
I'll be
We'll see you
listening.
then. Until then, football is back.
Football's back.